Down under, but it is time for Shiny Side Out with Dave and Mecky. So I hope you have your tinfoil hat all made and cinched down tight over your ears. So take it away, Dave and Mecky.
Welcome to Shiny Side Out with
Dave
and Mecky on WZZR, broadcasting from Australia for Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com, where it's more than just radio. Jump in the chat room if you can. Show number 270, I think it is. 270. It's on air, online, and on your smart device. So grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on a Grace Tabletop Digital Radio. If you missed Solaris' show, it only costs $5 a month to access the Freedom Slips archives and check out her shows. So please go ahead and do that. She's on just before us. Just before. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land. For myself, it's the Daruk people. And for Dave, it's the Dark and Young. Pay our respects to elders, past, present, and future. Hey, Dave. How are you, buddy?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I missed you last week. I knew you were traveling, so it became the Dave show.
No, I heard it was a good show. I haven't actually listened to it yet. I haven't had time. I just got back into the country at 6 a.m. this morning. But my brother listened and he said it was good. You were talking about Nibiru, Planet X, right?
Yeah, that's right. So I covered off a whole bunch of things, scientifically, of course, where, you know, that the history of how we discovered planets to all the way up to the point where we've mathematically found another large object in the solar system. Because remember, Mecky, we thought the solar system ended at the heliosphere. Well,
actually, yes. There's something called the Oort cloud.
The Oort cloud, that's right. Mm-hmm.
That's where it actually ends. Yeah, that's right. Go on, yeah.
Well, it doesn't. There's another planet out there that's even further away.
Further out than the Oort cloud. Mm-hmm. How about that?
So it's 4 to 5 times, of course, the what is believed to be the size of the Earth, and because of it's pretty cold, you can't really see it, and it doesn't give off any visible light. So something else extraordinary, Mecky, that I discovered also was that all the planets that are on the interior of our orbit go through moon cycles of reflectivity of the sun. Oh. Like you see them, you know, waning and you know, crescent shapes in their reflection, whereas the outer planets always appear as a full disk. Always. Okay. Isn't that extraordinary? I didn't know that. So I learned a little thing while I'm doing my research, and voila, there it is. That's a whole show, and it also speculates a little bit about how was it Voyager 1 and 2 were sent off in an arc opposed from each other on either side to intercept this Planet X. That's the speculation, because of the region of space that they were sent on either side of is the place 40 years later where the mathematics is saying there is a planet. So isn't that interesting? And both of them have been considered, both Voyager 1 and 2, to have left our solar system in the traditional sense of it being within the Oort cloud. They've now entered interstellar space, because of the Oort cloud is the point at which the sun's outward pressure is no longer sufficient because of, you know, 1 over x squared, the distance away from it, it becomes weaker, where the inward pressure of the galaxy or just space is pushing in on it. So this becomes a spherical shaped stopping point, and it's the heliopause where all of this matter is, that like frozen material, like an ice, not an ice shield, but it's certainly full of, you know, particles, because it's the pause. It's where there is no more movement. There's no longer any outward movement and no inward movement. So yeah, it's very interesting, Mackie, and I should point out to people if they, interested in finding out more about Nibiru, Planet X, Planet 9, whatever they want to call it today, that it's been confirmed by NASA, although not directly, but indirectly through many statements over the last 30 years that they've discovered it. And I really liked the topic, Mackie. We even went into the Sumerians and how they should not have known what they knew, and I tied it into a whole bunch of things. But also, Galileo and Copernicus. And so, yeah, very, very cool stuff. A great topic to at least I dealt with it on my own, Mackie. We can always revisit it in another show. I promise you.
Oh, look, like I said, I heard that you did a fantastic job. My brother, who is not usually full of praise of anyone, said that you did a good job.
Well, I like your brother just as much, man. He's a great guy.
Person.
And yeah, and
no, he is.
He really is. Mackie, they announced the Eurovision song, the country who won it. I'm not going to, no spoilers here, but it was actually pretty fun. We used to watch it, Mackie. To be honest, I used to watch it with some jest. I used to watch it for entertainment. A lot of very flamboyant songs, and get up and big stage performances. And this year it was simply won by a couple with none of that. So you should be able to identify who that is. Extraordinary.
Look, I grew up with it, so Eurovision for me, that was an annual event back in Germany.
62 years it's been going on.
It has, and it's one of those undertakings that were invented to prevent further wars in Europe. Like the European Union, like NATO to some extent, the UN, and other things as well. So this was a nation building, I should say, a continental nation building exercise. But now Australia competed. And I thought that was interesting. That we had a place that's right.
Well, we didn't win, but we didn't come we didn't come last, and I thought we were up there.
Yeah, we were there. I mean, and Australia is not part of Europe. Just so we're all clear on that.
FYI, to all those people who may not know where Europe is, or we're not in it.
That's right. So, look, a few things that I would like to observe from my travels. I did travel to the States for the last 10 days. I went to Orlando in Florida. Florida is flat. It's flat. It's completely flat. It's not even a hillock. No, it is pretty flat. And I saw a few alligators by the side of the road in the water. And it's all cool, right? I saw an armadillo, which I hadn't seen before.
Cool.
So that was pretty cool. But what I really want to share here with everybody is an observation that I made of the sky in Orlando as I was looking up.
How so?
So there were a number of crisscrossing what we would probably identify as chemtrails. Let's say to be controversial. Let's call them chemtrails.
Mm-hmm.
And they were there for a long time. And they seem to be expanding a little, but they were there for a long time, like any other cloud formation, right? They were just there for a long time. At the same time as I was observing those crisscrossing chemtrails, like I said, let's call it that, I saw two jets much higher than those chemtrails because they were behind, if you will, behind those clouds. In the stratosphere, I imagine, because they're really high up, and they left a very strong condensation trails, contrails, and you could see the difference. And this, to me, was probably the best case study of a comparison between contrails or condensation trails and chemical trails. The condensation trails disappeared very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the jet, whatever it was, it could have been a military jet, could have been a passenger. I have no idea, but it left quite a significant condensation trail behind it as it flew across the sky, but it disappeared fairly quickly as well. All right, so from my vantage point, I would say it was the condensation trail left by the jet was probably 30 or 40 times the length of the jet, but then it would just disappear with it. And I saw two of those going in different directions, and
vastly different to the chemtrail. Yep,
completely. Yeah. So, and look. I'm happy to be corrected here on my physics or chemistry for that matter. But condensation forms because of the temperature variations between the actual jet engine and exhausts and the atmosphere, which gets colder as you go higher up, not warmer, because there's less atmosphere to trap the warmth of the sun. Okay, so as you get closer to the sun, it doesn't get hotter; it gets colder. Okay, because there's less atmosphere, so it gets colder and colder and colder. Therefore, condensation should remain longer. The colder it is, the higher up you are. Makes sense, right? The lower you go into the atmosphere, the less condensation you should have. In fact, close to ground level, you have none. Landing planes have no condensation trails unless it's in the Antarctic somewhere, right? Things like that. But there shouldn't be any condensation trails. We saw that on 9/11 as well, by the way, right? Oh yeah, sure. The condensation trail really, there was a missile exhaust. That's what you saw there. But the point here is that the chemtrails, they stayed much, much lower in the atmosphere at least from my observational vantage point, even though their temperature would have been a lot higher than the condensation trails I witnessed with the two jets up above. So that's just an anecdotal piece of evidence between the differences here, right? Or to outline the differences between the two types of cloud or condensation or chemtrail phenomena. So, do I know what they're doing? No, I have no idea. Are they seeding something in the atmosphere? Well, quite likely, because as I said, and this was not the only day I saw those crisscrossing lines in the sky over Orlando, over Florida, because we actually went down to Cape Canaveral now it's called again, to the Kennedy Space Center. I went there, and I also took a ride down to Miami, to Miami Beach. So I had a little bit of time while we were there. And I tell you what, it was fascinating. I mean, in Florida, and Floridians are quite nice, quite friendly people. It's completely full of amusement parks. It's what it is. It's not just Disney World. There's SeaWorld. I mean, you throw a rock, you hit an amusement park. That's just how it is down there. But going down to Cape Canaveral, that was quite something. It's like Florida is almost uninhabited. As you're driving, you can drive for a long time without seeing anyone, without seeing any habitation. And like I said, it's completely flat. So there's a lot of open space as you're driving there to the coast. And as we're driving into Cape Canaveral and then into the Kennedy Space Center, you just realize just how far away from everything it is. And clearly, you need to have that kind of distance in case something goes wrong as you launch your rockets. And then you go to the Space Center itself. And the funny thing is this, Dave, and the reason I'm talking about it is I started talking to my colleagues, to my team, about the technology that existed 60 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and what we had done and how far we had gotten. And they were joking around, so Mackie, is this the studio where they made the fake moon landings? I said, no, that's in Burbank, California.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we looked at it, and he goes, so one of my guys in my team said, we had all this technology, and we haven't gone back in, well, it's now been 1970, like 40, almost 50 years.
That's right.
Since we were there, right? And we haven't gone back. I said, well, officially we haven't gone back. So it begs the question, why we haven't gone back, right? And then we started talking about, why haven't we gone? What could we have found? What could have happened? Why not, right? What went on? I mean, there was, and then the whole the discussion went to hidden technology or black technologies, black budgets and things.
Mm-hmm.
That, I mean, America spends a lot of money on stuff.
Mm.
They sure do. And so it was interesting to see people that aren't really involved to these
Actively in conspiracies.
as you and I are.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, right? I mean, you and I were neck deep in this stuff. But those guys were
neck deep.
Well, I think so. I think we
I'm
should get
swimming. I've
scores,
got scuba gear on.
That's right. And yeah, that's true enough, I guess. But people ask questions. I mean, these are legitimate questions. I mean, why haven't we gone back? Why is the push for Mars now on? Why hasn't the push been on for the last 50 years? Why haven't we gone back to the moon? Why haven't we done this? And there's a whole bunch of stuff, right? I mean, there's a space station. I mean, we mothballed the shuttle program. There's a very interesting video on the whole shuttle program, which was fascinating stuff as well. And then also, now SpaceX. We have like private space exploration to some extent, at least in the lower Earth orbits, to shuttle cargo up and down from the space station, and now we're looking at going into asteroid mining, and they're talking about going back to the moon, having a station there. And
That's
to
right.
Mars
That
and all
was
these
this week. I heard that too.
Yeah, and look, all of a sudden, it's on again, right? It's on for young and old, and there was we had a presentation by one of the people there, clearly a trained actor, but one of the NASA presentations as you to the center, and then you look at the stuff, and he was actively trying to engage the younger members of the audience. I mean, it could be you. I mean, we need people like you to come and work with us. I might be looking at the first person that's going to be on Mars. That might be in this audience here right now, right? And I thought that's really cool that they do that. But then I also thought about all the stuff I know outside of this, and I started talking about the secret space program to my colleagues, and the jump rooms, and we had Laura Eisenhower, the program, and they go, really? I said, yeah, well, we have. And I also said, have a look at some of the moon videos by Jose Escamilla. I mean, these movies are excellent. I mean, just have a look at it. I mean, they're all images from the Clementine space mission. Photographing the moon. So let's just have a look at it. I mean, see what you think. It's the information is out there. So sorry, I just wanted to share that because this was the first time I had gone to the Space Center, and it was really cool. Like I said, it was we got there early, and the tourists hadn't gotten there yet, but there were busloads shipping in, which is good to see that people have still an interest in this kind of thing. And but it's also good to see that the questions are being asked by people that are normally not into this kind of thing, right? Because it's Dave. It's an odd thing. Why didn't we go back for such a long time? Why was the space program effectively mothballed? All we did was low Earth orbit (LEO) missions. Okay, so that's all we have done. We've just been shuttling in the lower atmosphere. I mean, sorry, we did actually go out of the atmosphere into space, but it was low Earth orbit, right? Not high Earth orbit. And we certainly didn't escape Earth's gravity well. We didn't go back to the moon. We didn't go manned missions. We didn't go to any asteroids. We didn't go to any other planets that we know of. And so it's almost like someone clipped our wings officially, and kept us at a certain level. This is as far as you can go, no further. This is you can play around here as much as you like. Do not come back to the moon, and do not even think about going to another planet, right? So, and that's the question that people asked. Why? And not just the United States. Everybody, right? Nobody has gone. Like the Russians didn't. So why didn't the Russians? Okay, so the Americans might have beaten them to the moon, but why didn't the Russians build a station on the moon? Why didn't they push on to Mars? Right? Or the Chinese now, and the Indians certainly, or whoever, right? But I mean, there are now some missions happening, but only after 50 years. It just seems odd, and like almost like a halt in technology, like a halt in technology. Just on that though, and I don't know if you've mentioned that, Dave. Last week, I've got this from the Inverse.com news. It's a science side, and what they said last week. This is in fact the article is from January 26, 2017, but I only saw it recently. The Holy Grail, metallic hydrogen, is going to change everything. Metallic hydrogen. So right now, and they talked about the tanks, and the tanks are quite massive. I took some pictures. The actual booster rockets, took the shuttles up, massive things. Now they're all in liquid state, liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. They burn for propellant. If you can make them solid, which is what it is, and it's metastable. What does metastable mean? A diamond is carbon. That's what it is. It's just carbon, right?
But that's all it is.
So yeah, it's a piece of coal. Let's look. It's a piece of coal, and you take that piece of coal and you apply pressure and heat, a lot of pressure and heat.
A lot of heat.
It turns into a diamond. Right? Yeah, it turns into a diamond. Right? But guess what? If you take the pressure and heat away, it stays a diamond. Right? That's what's called metastable. Once you've changed its atomic structure like this into a grid, it stays that way. Same with metallic hydrogen, they think. It's metastable. So once you have, in fact, compressed it into essentially a block of metal, right? It stays that way. And that, apparently, is going to revolutionize space travel, that kind of fuel. But apparently it's still a couple of decades off. But anyway, just something I wanted to throw in there quickly as well, since we're talking about space travel. Not that we will need metallic hydrogen because we jump rooms. But, yeah, so sorry, I've been rambling on a bit, but there's a few things that I did want to share with you guys while I was away. So it wasn't a complete waste of time as far as the show is concerned. And but Dave, you've noticed this as well, right? I mean, people are asking the question, why haven't we gone back? Why haven't we done more in space?
You're absolutely right, and it's surprising me every time someone does, just like it surprised you and it's done the same to me. These are people who would normally never have had any exposure to what we talk about in their day-to-day. This is what you're experiencing, right? Their day-to-day lives, no exposure. Suddenly the topic comes up and then they point straight at you and go, hey, can you tell me more about this thing? And you go, how do you know about that? Oh, YouTube. Usually YouTube is the big one. Or everyone knows. Everyone knows about it. We just don't talk about it. It's the other answer. That gets me every time. So if everyone knows about it, why aren't we all saying something about it? Oh, it's, you have to say, Mekki, imagine this is the Cold War. This is on the other side in the Soviet Union, possibly. I'm just creating a picture here. In the underground black market for jeans. Everybody knew that you could go and buy jeans, but it cost you quite a bit. Everyone knew who to talk to, but no one would say a word. And it's all there, but it is there, and it was real. This is the same, I'm drawing a comparison because I think it's really important. Mekki, you said that you just wanted, I had a couple of topics here as you were talking. So one of those is chemtrails. Now, there are lots of descriptions of chemtrails, and what I actually think it is was born out of watching a documentary about NASA's previous 10 years, and I think it was filmed in like 2009. So it's probably started in 1999 and went up to 2009. That's where the documentary was filmed. And this was about NASA's experimentation with alternate fuels, trying to save money because of the fuel crisis. We're always heading, isn't it? Every couple of years, there's always a fuel crisis coming, right? And the petrol goes up, or gasoline goes up, or oil per barrel goes up, but there's never a true correlation. Right now, suddenly, Trump sends some missiles into Syria, and now we're paying $1.53 again per litre here. Made no sense. I mean, why? Why? Because oil dropped this week. And we've still got even higher. This is the same height as the maximum height price we paid when it was at $100 a barrel. Why, if it's $50 a barrel and we're paying the same amount, it doesn't make sense. Anyway, so getting off topic, but there is a program, and you're going to like who's backing it. Because remember was it anti-malaria or whatever that thing was, trying to rid, the world of mosquitoes? Mekki, who backed that? The Gates Foundation.
Gates Foundation did.
Who fast-tracked that development and fast-tracked the industry being able to put out mosquitoes that wouldn't replicate again? The Gates Foundation. And what happened? We saw the greatest development of the world's fastest growing disease on the planet in the same area at the same time, and looked and appeared to be, as a correlation only, that was the actual thing that they were trying to do. That it was born out of that, second use of born out of that, third years, of that experiment. Now, Gates has said world depopulation can be done by vaccines.
Extraordinary.
Right. Next, the third thing that he's got his hands in is what's called SCPE, or SCOPEX, otherwise known as Stratospheric Controlled Perturbation Experiments. And what is that? Now, the Gates Foundation says these are seen as critical to this process, and the first is planned to spray water molecules into the stratosphere to create a 1 kilometer long and 100 meter wide icy plume, which can be studied and by a maneuverable flight balloon. Okay, and they're saying if the lab tests are positive, I think this is from like these very quotes come from 1980, quite possibly, right? Because it's happening now. They've already discovered what they can do in aircraft fuel to make it look like no one's doing anything, and just fly planes at a particular altitude, and clouds of vapor come out doing exactly what they wanted to do in the first place, and that is reduce the Earth's temperature, blocking the sun's energy, reflecting white light back into the cosmos, and not allowing it to penetrate to the ground through the atmosphere. And they're saying here, if lab tests are positive, the experiment would then be replicated with limestone compound, which researchers believe will neither absorb solar or terrestrial radiation nor deplete the ozone layer. Wait. They're saying that whatever they'd been doing has been depleting the ozone layer? Is that what they're saying? When you read that, what dangers are there by spraying stuff into the atmosphere? Some of the dangers are actually heating up the upper atmosphere, which that's dangerous. We don't want to do that, because that can cause problems with the transfer of water molecules around the planet. You don't want to do that. But what have we seen? We've seen some of the greatest droughts on the planet ever occur in the last 10 years.
That's right.
California hasn't seen water. Yeah. We're seeing, the de-icing of all of the great mountain ranges, including Kilimanjaro, which isn't near anything significant enough to cause it. The Rocky Mountains, we're seeing less and less water there. There was a significant snow drop this year, which is good, thank heavens. Otherwise, Californians go without water. That's the end of that. So if they're now, the desalination program people who sell desalination plants are rubbing their hands together, waiting for that call from Southern California, because they've almost got nothing. Okay, so Bill Gates and other foundations are substantially funding the project, and aerospace companies are thought to be taking a business interest in the technology's potential. Potential, I cry out in vain with my arms waving, jumping up and down. Potential? I believe that this technology has been going on for some time, and in fact it's been going on for so long that they've been able to draw all these conclusions about the ozone layer, terrestrial radiation, water transport across the planet, and they've come to the conclusion of doing this one, just simply spraying water. Because it creates ice particles, and ice particles do those special things in the sky when it's in the upper atmosphere. It looks magical. You get rainbows and circles, and you see them around the moon, and you see them around the sun, and they're huge, and sometimes there's more than one because they're occurring at different levels. I think that's what they've already been doing. So the people who talk about chemtrails as being a negative thing, we don't know. Maybe it has been. Maybe there's two different groups working here. But I'm going to ask you, why on earth are they trying to cool the planet down? Tell me that.
Look, there could be a number of...
isn't that Meki, a strict admission that there is a heating problem from the sun occurring here? Isn't that what that is? As soon as you start messing around between us and the sun, that's an admission. That's no longer human problem. That's the sun's problem. Makes you think, right?
We should realize one thing though here as well, and this is what people don't understand either. We are actually not in the Goldilocks zone. Okay, we're not. The planet Earth is not in the Goldilocks zone. In fact, the Goldilocks zone is a complete fallacy, because the Goldilocks zone is regulated by the atmosphere that your planet has. Your planet can be anywhere it wants to be, but it depends on the atmosphere, on how much sunlight it actually lets in and then traps to enable life to exist. So the actual proximity to any given star is only of secondary importance. What is of the primary importance is your atmosphere, and the composition of your atmosphere, the thickness of your atmosphere, a whole bunch of other things about your atmosphere. Forget the Goldilocks zone. Oh, but what about the radiation? Irrelevant. If you've got a magnetic field, and again, it depends on the strength of the magnetic field. But before I talk about that, let me talk about something else. It's the bottom of the first hour, guys. So get yourself some great merchandise from the station's website. You can buy a CD of your favorite host shows for previous season, an EMP-proof thumb drive with survival documents, or a 75K CD pack. And you just follow the instructions there, please. The number to call in, if you are in the United States of America, which I was last week, in fact, yesterday.
You should have called in.
347-688. I should have called in, right? Right, you're right. Next time. That's always the next time. 347-688-2902. 347-688-2902. Or you can use Skype, which is what Dave and I are doing right now. And you merely add Freedom Screen. One word, Freedom Screen. If you live in Kentucky, and this is so cool, you can pick us up on FM frequency modulation on WZZR 101.3, WZZR 101.3, or anywhere else, and we do mean anywhere else, via tunein.com, web, Radio Central, receiver, mobile app, freedomslips.com, Freedom Slips mobile, TalkStream Live, streamfinder.com, internetradio.com, Radio Tuner, Radio Waze, radioline.co, and our very own Shiny Side Out. Getting back, though, to the atmosphere. The key thing, or the two key things, let's say, and then the third thing is actual proximity. Number one, atmosphere. Second thing, the magnetosphere, or the magnetic field that your planet has. Now, these two work hand in hand. Okay, if you have no magnetosphere, hard radiation is going to penetrate right down into the crusts and sterilizing your entire planet, right? Over time. Not immediately, but over time. And again, it depends on how close you are to your sun at that point, right? The closer you are to the sun, the quicker the radiation is going to kill you. The further out you are, the longer it'll take. It makes sense, right? Also depends on how much radiation the sun gives off, your particular sun. So
you could just be sterilized. You could be sterilized. You could be sterilized by the Gates Foundation, depending on what their proximity is to you. Yes, but you're absolutely right, Mickey. Yes, all of those things protect your planet from the radiation of the sun.
In our planet specifically, right? And people say, and in fact, there was for NASA. When I was watching the show about Mars and this, while I was there, I said this that they once had an atmosphere. There's ample proof now for flowing water to have been on Mars, and we don't know what happened. They say, well, if you look at that massive canyon, not a crater, it's a canyon. It's a crater canyon, as far as I'm concerned, that runs across the planet for quite a distance. And in fact, apparently, it would be the Grand Canyon, and if it was the Grand Canyon on Earth, it would go from New York to LA. That's how big this particular thing is. And then you look at the two moons, Phobos and Deimos, which are not round at all, but they're rather shaped like potatoes, oddly shaped potatoes or turnips. Clearly, what happened? Something came along and ripped a large piece of Mars out of its crust, and took with it, quite likely, the atmosphere and some water, I would imagine, or any life that might have existed on it. Do I think a war is likely here? I do. Yes, I do. I do believe a interplanetary or solar or interstellar war are possibilities here. I do believe that. I'm crazy, so it's okay. But something happened to Mars that was catastrophic and destroyed every living thing on it. And again, it doesn't matter that it's further away. It doesn't matter because we don't know what the atmosphere was composed. It might have been thicker. The atmosphere might have been thicker and might have trapped more heat, right? It might have trapped more heat, or it might have let more heat in. We don't know what the composition was either. Maybe there was more oxygen in the atmosphere. Maybe there was less. I don't know. What I do know is there was flowing water and there was an atmosphere at some point, and now it has pretty much neither of those. It's very thin atmosphere now at this point. But the important thing is the magnetosphere, the magnetic shield. Think of it as a shield. Now, these are the important things. So when people talk to you about the Goldilocks zone, I don't know why people do that, Dave. It's like a red herring. Oh, yeah, it's in the Goldilocks zone. Who cares? Tell me about the planet. What about its atmosphere? What about, does it have a magnetic field? Yes, no. If it doesn't have a magnetic field, we can't live there unless it's underground. We have to dig ourselves right deep in there and live underground. Yay, that's awesome. So let's ask the smart questions here, guys, right? Let's not be bamboozled by people that seem to have no idea what they're talking about. I don't know, Dave. Why do you think that is? Why do we get bamboozled with all these different things?
Oh, that's a good question. I just don't. Obviously, you got me stumped there for a minute, but look, I don't think that there is let's say there's never a straight answer. Mackie, that's what I'm going to say.
Yes.
NASA, never a straight answer. I don't think that they were the ones who have assisted in people knowing the correct information. Because where is the monolith? Which moon of Mars is it? There's a monolith.
No, it wasn't on Mars.
There's a
sorry. Oh, yes.
There's a monolith on one of the moons of Mars. Why? How? How is there a monolith there? Mackie's right. The destruction of Mars could have been a war. We think there was a war anyway, whether it destructed Mars or not.
Phobos. Sorry.
Phobos.
It's on Phobos.
That's right. So Phobos has a monolith, and it's a very similar monolith, and it looks like that was the monolith, Mackie, that in 2001: A Space Odyssey, the monolith on Earth where the monkeys were playing with the bones. That's what it's said to have been represented.
It's 85. Yeah, it's 85 meters across. So it's actually not high, but across 85. Yep. That's massive, right?
It sounds like one of those, the large stones at the Jupiter Temple, Mackie. Doesn't it?
Maybe.
When you think about what there is, and on the rear side of the moon, which we can't see, but there's photographs of, there are a lot of structures. So if you start to accumulate that there's not just structures on Earth, that some are on the moon, and you've got clearly a monolith on a moon of Mars, then what was there before? Most of Mars is it's a big ice ball covered in red dust. That's it. But one side, the other interesting thing about Mars is that the one hemisphere, like right across it, if you get an orange and just randomly turn it, so it's not the top and the bottom, but it's wherever one side is pelted with debris, you cut it and it's only that one side. So momentary during its spin was a large field of debris that slammed into Mars. Now, whether that's extraterrestrial cause or not is something else, but it did cause a nuclear winter, well, I'll say a forced winter upon the planet, which froze it instantly. So there was an impact, everything was thrown into the atmosphere. It immediately began to freeze within just a couple of days, I think, with a couple of rotations. All of the water was evaporated away through the coldness of it and stored in the poles. And now there's almost no atmosphere at all. Of course, this is what they tell us. But if you think and listen to the jump rooms, it's just cold. It's breathable cold air. But I argue still, once again, Mackie, the rock they found in the South Pole on the ice, how can they identify that as being from Mars if we haven't sent anything there that's come back with rocks from Mars? How can they know?
You know that most of the Mars missions failed.
Yep.
We lost contact. We can't,
Mm-hmm.
radio signals. Blah 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 blah.
And the excuses are endless. Oh, the two teams. What I love. My favorite was the two teams that were putting one of the exploration probes out to Mars. One of them was apparently using Imperial for measurements, and the other was using metric. That's the argument we got back from from NASA. Oh, the teams were using numbers, but they didn't know one was Imperial, one was metric. Yeah, sure. Russia trying to send stuff out to there. It suddenly just goes poof, it's gone. It's like they had a protection mechanism around the planet. There's also, Mekhi, go ahead. Go ahead.
No. The reason, sorry, I just posted the article that BBC published at the beginning of last year about the monolith, and there's the picture here, the Mars monolith, and the credit is actually going back to the Mars Global Surveyor. So NASA, this is a NASA picture we're looking at here, and I'm just blown away by how much like a monolith it actually looks. This is actually a very tall structure, right? Look, seemingly it's 85 meters across. Therefore, if it's 85 meters across, it must be 300 or 400 meters tall. Just the relativity of this. So, and it is rectangular with a slight notch on the side, but it's almost rectangular in shape. So this is not some kind of rocky outcrop. This is a fairly regular piece of, geology. Sorry, it's just astonishing, guys. In the chat room, if you're gonna go follow that link and have a look at that picture, the second picture in the article is a black and white picture, and again, it's from the Mars Global Surveyor. It's just astounding, in my opinion. It's truly something else. Sorry, go ahead, mate.
It is completely, truly something else. It's an extraordinary feat, and it's unlike any other feature on the same moon. It's unlike any other feature. So geographically, the moon, it's basically just a big rock. That's what it is. Huge rock. It's pitted with tons of impact points, craters everywhere, and yet there is it looks tombstone-like in its dimensions, maybe just a bit taller than a tombstone in dimension, but it's certainly there. And as a NASA picture, how did it get there? That's the question you have to ask. So how did it get there? Who was it that put it there? It doesn't look like it's been shot at it. It looks like it's definitely self-standing where other things have impacted it. You've got to think about it. It's real. It's real, and there it is. But there are other things that may set this out. We don't know what it is, but on the moon we have very similar arrays of things on the other side. Extraordinarily tall structures, dishes, tubes. Something looks like a crashed spacecraft also on our side of the moon. You just have to think about it. They're all there. They're in the photos. And, why would NASA want to blur out something on a photo? We all consider NASA to be a public company, but it's not. It's military, and its design is not to teach us everything, not to disclose anything. That's not their job. Their job is also not contact. So if they were to see something, they're supposed to run away and tell someone else. Another three-letter agency, black-budgeted thing. Mekhi, you mentioned earlier, this other things I want to bring up was that we haven't, they mothballed the shuttle program. Interesting. We haven't been back to the moon. Well, of course, the conspiracy is that we were warned away from it. We're told never to return. Maybe they gave us a length of time at which that would be valid for. Maybe all part of the UN. Maybe everyone had to sign up and agree. We're not going back. No humans going there. Maybe humans never went there. Maybe it was too deadly. Maybe the radiation, the Van Allen belt. You keep naming the things that make it seem a little, maybe too easy to go to the moon. Yeah, it's just up there. We can fly to it. Yeah, sure. But how is there footage of the 3 astronauts who went to the moon, first and second men on the moon, and the guy that remained in the orbiter? why is there only low Earth orbit footage of them at the time when they were supposed to be going to the moon, faking the long shot, the one that's there in history? Why is that there? Why did they appear to fake? I like that, Rectify. Thank you. Why do they appear to fake it? And all these conspiracies have come. People have asked questions, and they tend to just go away again. There isn't any outrage upon it. We all looked on with amazement, being a kid. I remember doing that, watching the moon landing. Now, if it really was a fake mission, and there's light sources incorrectly in the shadows, and everyone talks about a flag, which I don't believe is fake. I don't believe there's wind moving it. If you see all of those, don't ignore them. Look at the footage. If you look at all the existing footage, there's replicated footage, which could be just simply in the wrong canister of later missions, but they are the same place, but they're meant to be at a different location on the moon, having landed in a different craft and having a different EVA with different experiments and things to set up. It may be, and this is the conspiracy, is maybe there are structures there. Maybe they went to visit. Maybe the moon is hollow. Maybe there are aliens living on the moon. Maybe they're the Watchers, Meki. In ancient times, the ancient people talked about those who were to look over the Earth. Maybe they don't live on Earth. Maybe they live on the moon. Maybe, the Japanese are right, that Santa lives on the moon and comes and gives us presents.
Look, there's stories. Every culture has a story about the man in the moon or a little boy in the moon. Or there's something in the moon, right? And in Germany, it's the man in the moon. It's a prominent story. Other cultures, again, like I said, the Japanese, the Chinese, they have a whole host of people living on the moon there, and it's really quite confusing, especially if you look at the Japanese mythology. And the Chinese mythology, it's not very far behind. I love to read these old myths. And we talked about the people that believed they lived on Earth before the moon was even there.
That's right.
So, I mean, look, we've done the show cycle on the moon. I think it has shown very clearly that the moon is a very mysterious object. It is completely incongruous if you look at the rest of the solar system. It doesn't make any sense at all. It is way too big in comparison to the Earth. It has a very eccentric orbit, showing only one side to the Earth at any given moment, the same side, as it were. It is exactly 400 times smaller than the Sun, and is exactly 400 times closer than the Sun. So it is perfectly aligned. If the Sun and Moon eclipse each other, they're perfectly aligned. So if the Moon actually perfectly covers the disk of the Sun. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of other things around about the Moon as well. It rang like a bell. All the rocks on it are a billion years older than any Earth rocks, and so on and so forth. So there's a whole bunch of stuff about the Moon, which simply doesn't make any sense. And in fact, speaking of moons, the moon Phobos is the most mysterious object in the solar system, even more mysterious than our moon. And Deimos is not far behind. They're too small. They make no sense. Again, the rocks are a lot older than the Martian geology, if you will. So there's a whole bunch of stuff in our solar system which obviously is unexplained, but which doesn't make any logical or common sense. It simply doesn't follow. We can't explain the formation of our moon when we can't explain the formation of the moons of Mars. They don't make sense. If anything, the moon is more like a binary planetary system for us here. So we're like a dual planet, Earth and Moon, rather than an Earth or a planet. Look at Saturn and Jupiter, for example. I mean that makes sense, right? They're massive planets, even though they're gas giants. But they've got I think Saturn has 60, or Jupiter, one of them has like 60 odd planets. 60 odd moons orbiting it, right?
But they're quite small in comparison.
Yeah, tiny in comparison, right? So our moon should be a lot smaller, except it isn't. It is what it is. So there's a lot of stuff in that area that doesn't make any sense. And look, again, it's because I went there and it brought all of this to the fore. and that's why we sort of this show is it's going to be a bit of freewheeling, and we're going to have a bit of a stream of consciousness here. It is just so mysterious and completely inexplicable, and the mystery deepens the more you look at it, and it deepens even more because everybody is looking away. It's the pink elephant in the room, but nobody's looking at it. Why did we stop space exploration? Don't ask that question. Well, no, I mean, really, don't ask that question.
Mackie, the astronauts had all expected for us to be living there by now, and to have bases as early as the 70s.
That's right. Now, I wanted to quickly talk about John Glenn. He died at the beginning of last year. Sorry, at the end of last year, December 8, 2016. John Glenn, John Herschel Glenn. He was actually he was the oldest active astronaut in his time. So he was part of the Mercury missions, and he also went on the Discovery space shuttle in 1998. And he was a sitting senator at the time. So his space career spanned over 30 years. So that's impressive. Now, this John Glenn, when he was in fact a senator, was on the Fraser Crane show. Fraser, the show, Dave, with Kelsey Grammer?
Yes.
Now, he was on there. So the episode, I think this was season 7 or 8. I got to lie to you here. But if you have a chance, please watch this show.
Mm-hmm.
Season 7 or 8, and it's called Docudrama. So Roz, who is Fraser's producer on the show, gets to do her own docudrama. And she decides to do space. And she gets John Glenn to be the narrator. Now, the actual John Glenn is on the show. So he plays himself on the show. And he comes in to narrate Roz's show. And then Roz and Fraser have a bit of falling out because, long story short, John Glenn is left alone in the booth, talking, right? And the beginning of the talk is what interests us here. Now, bear in mind, Frasier's a very popular TV show, and John Glenn is on there, and he's talking about his experiences in space. And he says, this is what he says. I can't remember it word for word, but watch the show for yourself. He goes on about, what we really found out there we could never talk about, and I watched these movies today, science fiction movies. And remember, this is the early 2000s here.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the stuff in the movies, he says, that's pretty close to the truth. But we were sworn to secrecy. And then it pans to the conversation between Roz and Fraser, and you don't hear the rest of what he's saying, Then he comes in to the other booth where Fraser and Roz are, and he says, were you recording what I just said? And Roz goes, yeah, so don't worry, that's all good. And he goes, no, I need that tape, please. and he takes it and goes away. Now, you can go many ways with this. Why would John Glenn, the actual John Glenn, agree to say something like this, which clearly could be used to ridicule him? I know Frasier's a comedy show, right? But the things he said, they were not comical in nature, even though there was like a laughter track after the things he had said. Then it's quite serious again when he asks for the tape back, So, look, all I'm saying here is there are breadcrumbs all over the internet, all over the world, all over the space, all over the solar system, if you will. And if you want to follow those breadcrumbs, you get to the truth. Right? So John Glenn said this on the Fraser Crane show. And I don't know. I mean, was this his way to say something, right? In a completely non-threatening environment that could be dismissed as just a joke? Was this his outlet, or was it really just a big joke, and it doesn't really matter, and was just poking fun at all the conspiracy nutters like Dave and myself? So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. All I know is that's what he said, and he's not the only astronaut to say things, Dave. He wasn't the only one that said that strange things happened and things couldn't be talked about, and we saw things that can't be explained. We also have footage. We have footage of things that can't be explained. We've got so much footage, it's not even funny. Yeah, But that's not being discussed. That's not being investigated. Why? This is the stuff that you should investigate. That's the stuff that you should look at. So, I don't know, Dave. It's just odd. It's just very, very odd. I mean, the whole thing doesn't make any sense to me.
I know, right? But you're right. I think that this is that dripping of information. One of the world's most popular shows, Frasier. Get it out there. I mean, why would they even broach the subject of conspiracy or, hidden information? Why would they even do that on such a, a highbrow show?
Yeah, no, it doesn't. I mean, that's not the only time that they dabbled with that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Another show, Frasier Crane was supporting a political candidate for mayor, in Seattle. And it turns out that this particular person went into politics because he believed he's an experiencer. He had been abducted.
Oh, awesome!
And he believed that he had to make the world a better place, and that's the visitors tasked him with becoming a better place. Making the world a better place. Now, suffice it to say, a lot of misadventures led to his outing as a believer in aliens, because Frasier got his wires crossed, and he was quite conflicted as to whether or not he could support him, because he thought he was insane. Clearly, anybody who believes that they abducted must be insane in Frasier Crane's world, right? Mm-hmm. But in the end, though, it was left open. It was because the person still believed what he believed, the candidate, right? It's called The Candidate, the show, and he then said, "Oh, I might go to California. Something like this might actually help me there." Right? That's what he said in terms of politics, right? And it's interesting. So we have this. I don't want to call it a revelation, but certainly this we're dealing with these topics in popular media and on television. Look at what's this guy? He's a comedian. He was on the Saturday Night Live show for years. Dan Aykroyd. Mm-hmm. Dan Aykroyd is a massive conspiracy nutter, like Dave and I.
Well, let's not call him a nutter. But you're right. He's a massive conspiracy researcher himself and believes entirely in UFOs.
You and I are nutters. We're nutters, dude.
I'm happy to be a nutter. And there's the music. It's a short station break. We'll see you on the other side of the top of the hour. Don't forget, use the time to donate.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. the Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
There is no denying the world is awakening. We see it in the global uprisings and demonstrations of the people around the planet and the new way of thinking and living that is arising naturally within each one of us and our communities. I have been a major player in this global shift and movement for over 20 years and have helped tens of thousands of people around the world change their lives and find their voice in order to help create the paradigm change we so desperately need. Join me here at Revolution Radio on the Just Bernard Show every Tuesday at noon Eastern Eastern Time for 2 hours of powerful interviews and discussion with some of the most influential visionaries of consciousness, alternative media, and suppressed knowledge. We promise to reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience.
Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or a computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? We'll squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent news story, and I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
On the go? Still want to listen? Don't have one of those fancy phones with too many buttons. Don't know what an app is? Or you don't even care? Well, we got you here at Revolution Radio. Now you can dial in 24/7 to listen to our shows. We have a number for Studio A and Studio B, and best of all, it's free. Don't forget, carrier charges for your cell phone provider may apply though, so check with your cell provider to make sure. So ready? Here you go. Get a pen. Here's the number. Studio A is 712-432-6958, and Studio B is 716-748-0112. Thank you very much for listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station in the world. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
You're back with David Mackey's Shiny Side Out on freedomslips.com on the #1 listener-supported talk radio on the net. So push the donate button or subscribe to the archives for only $5 a month. It's not very much money. $5 a month is just a cup of coffee. A nice large cup of coffee, the ones that I like to have. And look, I'd like to say hello to all of the new listeners we have, all the new subscribers and followers to us. Thank you very much. We hope your journey is a pleasant one. We hope that we explain ourselves readily and allow you to make the same conclusions that we've come to by giving you the same amount of information. Because remember, intel is the best thing you can have before making a decision. And then also be free and open and willing to change your mind should new information come to light. So, we are halfway through show number 270. Mackie.
Well, that's hard to say. So it's 07200. The next one will be better. 170 and 200. Next week is good.
It does sound pretty cool. So, look, before the break, we were talking and questioning chemtrails, the moon, issues, life in the universe, and a whole bunch of things. But I've got a couple, Mackie, just to get us rolling for this hour. Fossils. Now, we've done shows on fossils. Fossils are an important way for us to work out what on earth happened before we got here. And as you and I know, but the listeners, some new listeners may not know, Mackie, they're not everywhere, are they?
No.
And I like that. It was almost a closed question. So they're not everywhere, and they're not readily made. It takes a special set of circumstances to make a fossil. Fossils need to be, the life form needs to have been trapped in a less oxygenated environment. Usually sediment is good. Sediment in at the bottom of the ocean or in land, trapped in flood waters where the mud is like concrete, very fine particulates. And if that is able to cover or encase the carcass of the creature, mineral substitution will occur over a long period of time, replacing the live tissue with minerals and creating stone. Stone, which we today can identify as being exactly the shapes of bones, put the bones together, and voila, we're staring at it at a museum. However, something really extraordinary has happened. This week, the announcement came out, and I'm going to quote this, right? This is from the story. It says, before being assembled into something recognizable at a museum, most dinosaur fossils look like, to the casual observer, like nothing more than common rocks. No one, however, would confuse the over 100 million year old Nodosaur fossil for a stone. Now, this was brand new. This fossil, the fossil being unveiled in today, well, it was a couple of days old now, in Canada's Royal Tyrrell Museum of Paleontology, is so well preserved, it looks like a statue, Mackie. First one found ever like this. It was found in a mine.
Share with our business here. Let me see if we can find.
Can you grab that and pop it in the chat room?
Here we go. Done.
Awesome. Now, even more surprising might be its accidental discovery, as unveiled in the June issue of National Geographic magazine coming up. All right, so this is an article from the Washington Post. It's an extraordinary find, I have to say. It's so extraordinary, and there's a photograph in the news item there, which we've got running on our YouTube feed. That's what they found, Mackie.
But interestingly enough, looking at it here, the head. I'm looking at the headshot with the crested thorn or the crested horns that come out of its neck.
Yep.
Yeah, it looks like a dragon. Actually, it looks like a dragon.
It's very dragon-like, isn't it?
It is. So, is other stories of dragons and dragon-like creatures, in fact, stories of surviving dinosaurs? Are we talking about that? Is this what this is? Right? I mean, looking at this here, I mean, it's different to have a skeleton and then you have but normally happens, there's like a smooth skin that is superimposed over this dinosaur skeleton, normally, right? If you look at textbooks, they all seem to have like elephant-like skin. You look at this particular dinosaur, though, here, the Nodosaur, and you see it's ridged like a crocodile and has like a crested neck, armor, if you will, that really does make it very dragon-like.
No one's biting on that neck.
Right? No, that's exactly right. So, again, I've said this before and I'll say it again, right? And I know I'll lose people here. That's okay. I'll dig it. A lot of the creatures that we know from the olden times, the mythical creatures, the dragons, the unicorns, and things like that, I believe have a have a root in reality. I mean, you say, "Oh, unicorns, crazy talk, crazy talk." Well, really, is it? What about a rhinoceros? In fact, what about the narwhal? You know, the narwhal has a single horn.
That's right.
That is oddly unicorn-shaped like.
And excessively long, too.
Yes, and not only that, we know that whales, or we have a good indication that whales and dolphins were land-dwelling mammals at one point. Therefore, if the narwhal was in fact a land-dwelling animal, that's your unicorn right there. Goes way back in time. And maybe some of its ancestors, or some of its descendants decided not to go into the water, and the other animals as well. Then, so I err on the side of caution, because guess what? We have not dug up everything that is there to be dug up. And then in a second, I want to talk to you guys about the meteor strike 11,000 years ago, but we'll get to that in a moment. So let's be clear here, Dave. Right? This is an amazing find, because we've never ever seen a dinosaur fossil of this nature, not ever.
Yeah, so this huge machine they were using that has like a large hook on it was penetrating the rock and pulling it down from the rock face in a mine. And because we've got a lot of mine stories, Mekki, remember a lot of the testimonies from people working in mines. Well, where is the naysayers now on this one? Finding out-of-place artifacts, which we consider out-of-place artifacts because they don't seem to fit the narrative. So this machine penetrated the rock face and pulled out what was a different kind of rock to all the other. And as it pulled it out, this 3.5-ton rock, all in one piece, came down and broke into a few pieces, and they've reassembled from those pieces back together again to form an exact dinosaur. It still had some deposits around the outside, which they had to clean up. But that's extraordinary. We've never seen the actual skin and the armament around the outside. We've proposed it, but for the most part, all we have is some dinosaur bones. And that's why every time we find a feathered dinosaur in a silt layer where the feathers are intact, we become more excited. We go, "Oh, look at that. Look, they had feathers." And examination of the filaments, we can tell what color they were. Isn't it extraordinary? But this, first time ever, real dinosaur, actually, imagine the cataclysm, Mekki, that would have had to have trapped this dinosaur all at once.
No oxygen.
No
Zero
oxygen, yep. Because it hasn't...
Immediately.
Yeah, it didn't at all.
Heat.
Yep.
Yeah, but not enough heat to burn it, but enough heat to kill any bacteria or any other microorganisms that might have otherwise eaten flesh and the skin and so forth. No, this is very unique. You shouldn't say very unique. It's a unique situation for this fossilization to have occurred. Completely unheard of.
Yeah, it says thick knobs and two 20-inch spikes along its armored side for protection. It's just something else to see. It certainly appears to be a creature that, with the advent of predators which would grab an elongated neck, it seems to resist that entirely. So we don't know if they had break-off tails, like lizards today. Yeah, that would be an advantage. But this thing sort of, you mentioned armadillo, like they're armored plated. It's sort of in the way that you can see the way that the spines on it protrude like rose thorns. Yeah. And that they're all shaped away, pointing to the rear, so you wouldn't get stuck in vegetation. You'd just keep walking and you'd free yourself. So I think it's an extraordinary design. If I had to design one for battle, this would certainly come to mind, wouldn't it? They say that it also, according to the bone shapes, it would have walked similar to a lion, like similar to a big cat. Unlike the other dinosaurs of its size, which were a little bit more bipedal, this is a four-legged ground hugger. So extraordinary stuff, Mekki. I had to bring that one up because we haven't seen anything of the like of it, and if you tell your friends, you'll be the first in your friends group to have mentioned it. So that's something else.
That's right.
But Mackie, we talk about fossils all the time and how rare they are. And yes, we haven't dug very much up, and we live on a very small amount, little patches of land here and there on the planet. So last week, Mackie, I spoke about the Pacific Basin actually consists of a different material and is more than likely the origin or what's left of, what was the other planet. Living in Australia, we live on part of the original Tiamat, which is the Sumerians' word that the Anunnaki had told them that the planet was named, Tiamat. The other planet that buried itself into our planet and debris went everywhere and whatever, this is described by the Anunnaki to the Sumerians who wrote it down, passed it on, that Pacific Basin is what was left. And NASA have, agreed to that hypothesis, that's a portion of that planet still left behind. Isn't it extraordinary? So I'd love to know what that comprises, what materials are in that, because I don't know if we're going to find any fossils deep under the Pacific Basin. But we're finding them everywhere else on the planet, aren't we?
Yeah.
But they're not a dime a dozen. There are what we call dinosaur graveyards, and there's areas sort of in California, the La Brea tar pits, where they just fell into the tar. A very low oxygen environment, but acidic, and so it broke them down. It's just piles of bones. You just, if you put a machine into, like claws in, you just pull up bones, and it's been a wonder, because a lot of those creatures didn't leave very many fossils. Like Mickey and I have spoken about, if fossils were so readily created that you just, a creature fell down and died and it turned into a fossil, the forest would be filled with, you wouldn't be able to walk through a forest for the amount of fossils that would be left behind. And it's so extraordinary how fast the soil builds up in a forest. Because even in England, when they're doing an archaeological dig, there's a building that's not even 200 years ago. And yet they've got to dig a foot down in the dirt to find it. To find what was there. You go down even deeper. I think it was 30 feet. 30 feet from when the Romans occupied England. They found another Colosseum. Or like an amphitheatre. It's not a Colosseum, it's an amphitheatre. I was just watching a documentary on it today. That's 30 feet from road level. Soil just builds up. That's why we have so many darn layers of soil and earth above the bedrock. The bedrock would be all there would be if there was nothing else. Mackie, I'm going to pass it to you.
Look, what we're faced with here, essentially our world shifting and changing every day. We've brought to your attention a couple of things which are the most recent discoveries, the most recent glimpses into what we thought was pretty much established science. And we've done this for the entire life of the show. We've told you guys that science is continuously advancing, which is great, right? But it's struggling, that change. It's struggling to move along. And every heretic, everybody that comes along, everybody who's got a different opinion will be treated as such, right? Because you're dealing with things here that are no longer defendable. Okay, so once you get dogma and the dogma becomes indefensible, you are now dealing with emotion. And as science progresses, even as things change, even as we get more information, that information is not going to be transmitted to you. You will not know about it. It will be quiet. It will be very quiet around it, right? And even something as innocuous, even as innocuous as things we've brought to you here, like a dinosaur, right? It's just it looks like a statue, and the way it shifts things. You will not hear much about it because you're just the great unwashed masses. You're just the people that shouldn't know about this. There's another piece I wanted to talk about, which falls into that in some way, into that kind of mind frame. That's the Göbekli Tepe carvings. There's one particular stele which some scientists believe might depict a meteor strike or asteroid impact 11,000 before the Common Era, so 13,000 years ago, which lines up with a whole bunch of things we've been talking. And I've been reading the comments that followed this article. This is in the Telegraph, Daily Telegraph in the UK, and they're quite venomous and hateful. There's 136 of them, and not one single article is speaking up in. Oh, sorry, it's not true. There's probably a couple of comments that speak up in favor of the article, but most of them are just venomously attacking the science editor, Sarah Napton, and the article is from April 21, 2017. And again, it's science. We're talking science here. Like Dave spoke about the science just earlier, and this is something that scientists think might be happening. They looked at this carving. This is one of the steles in Göbekli Tepe, which they looked at, and it seems to have constellations there, and it seems to point to a comet strike, 10,950 BC.
Which is consistent.
It is.
Isn't it? Remarkably consistent with science today, although they won't agree to it. And the climate abruptly changing. And Mekki, you love those, well, not tulips, buttercups.
Buttercups in the mammoth. Yeah. Look, absolutely. This is really the key thing. Because, like we discussed earlier in the description of the strike as it goes, because the Earth was locked in an ice age at the time. So if you have this strike, which superheats the atmosphere, superheats the ocean, makes massive glacial lakes flood the surrounding land, makes the glacial or the glaciers themselves melt. Massive tsunamis would result as well if it strikes in the ocean, which it did in the Indian Ocean, we think. So all of these things taken together, and we've shown you the impact side on the ocean as well. Plus, we've looked at the flood mythology, and I'll put the article into the chat room.
Mm-hmm.
But my point here is, it is the replies by almost everybody in here to this article, which is so wow. It's because it makes reference to Graham Hancock. You may know him. He has done a lot of interesting work, wrote a lot of books around this as well, and but because it does make reference to him, it is completely dismissed by everybody almost that is commenting on this. No, really, it's astounding that this is just it is such an attack on this particular person. I find it a little disturbing, to be honest with you. It's pseudoscience. It's craziness. You can't take it seriously. You shouldn't refer to Graham Hancock at all. He's a drug-addled, crazy person, and so on and so forth. And okay, well, that's what you think. That's good for you. But we should remain at least a little open-minded here, especially if people are looking at different routes.
Oh my goodness, Mekki! I'm reading these too. I can't believe it.
It's quite venomous, don't you think? I mean, I think it is, right? And it's just a theory that's being put forward. Hey, it could be wrong. It could be wrong, but hey, let's look at something in a different way, right? I mean, look at these carvings, and this is some interesting stuff. I mean, some of it, if you look at the top of that particular rock or the monolith, the top of it looks like a couple of or three cars.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not saying that's what it is, so please don't say.
So it looks like cars in a traffic jam.
Yeah, but I didn't say that. That's what it looks like to me. Okay, that's what I'm saying here, guys. It's probably not. Okay, but there's a bear there as well. There's the scorpion is here quite clearly, and they draw parallels with the scorpion and the astronomical sign or the astronomical constellation of Scorpio. Look, All I'm saying is they're looking at it differently. There's actually this Dr. Martin Sweatman of the University of Edinburgh School of Engineering who looked at that, right? And they're going, oh, what's his qualification? Who is he? I'm amazed that there would be such
resistance,
such a flood.
Mackie?
Yes, it's resistance massively and such a flood of negativity. But I think the key negativity is drawn by the fact that Graham Hancock is mentioned here as having put forward a theory like this in his various books. So he did. But wow. So? Do people hate him? They hate him so much.
I know.
Look, I have to say something. Yeah, I have to say something about Graham Hancock here. He used to work for the BBC as a journalist. So he's actually a journalist before he started writing books about the mysterious world, right? And that he discovered in his travels. In fact, I remember seeing him for the very first time in a completely different context. I love Michael Palin. The intrepid world traveler and Monty Python member. And in one of his travels, I think it was pole to pole, he comes across Graham Hancock in Africa, and he was looking at a whole bunch of and Graham Hancock was there. He was doing an article, but he was also talking about this ancient civilization that existed in Africa that we no longer have any knowledge of, and these travels would have taken part in the early 90s. So in the early 1990s, that's when this would have happened. So some 20 or so, maybe longer now, years ago. And so that was the first time that I'd actually seen Graham Hancock way before. And he was just a journalist. And obviously what he discovered in his travels, because he was a journalist that traveled the world, were maybe these inconsistencies between what history told him and what he actually saw. And maybe even connections between different cultures that he saw, which others didn't because they don't travel. Let me tell you something about travel. It broadens your mind. I travel a lot, and I look at people, I look at architecture, I look at cultures, I look at language, and I tell you, I went to Fiji, and I saw there a man, a native Fijian, who could have stepped out a historic painting from 2000 BC,
wow.
Crete.
Mm-hmm.
He looked like an ancient Greek person, to face the features, like a very powerfully built body. He didn't look like an islander at all. He's native Fijian. He was there, with the other Fijians, and we got talking. What he to me is a genetic memory or genetic echo through the generations. Right? So clearly, maybe some of his ancestors may have in fact come or hailed from the Mediterranean. Who knows? Mm-hmm. But he it was astounding to see this person. And I see, look at us, people might hate me for this, but I see a lot of similarities from an ethnotype between the Southern Indians and some of the Aboriginal tribes. If you look at the facial features, if you even language. I think I told you the story. One of my friends who was Indian said that his grandmother came to visit, and she heard some Aborigines talking, and she goes, I know what they're saying. That they're speaking this and this dialect or this and this language. So she didn't understand everything, but she understood enough to understand what they were talking about. And we do know that the Aborigines came in 4 distinct waves into Australia from the north, right? And why not from India? Why not from India? Why not? Because clearly people could have migrated from India to Australia. And clearly people could have traded up in the top end with Indonesia, with Southeast Asia, with India, with Africa even. But no, we can't. We can't say that. Even though the evidence is there. I mean, you just look at people. You look around, you listen, and you observe everything, right? If you never leave your study, if everything you know comes from books, you know nothing. You have to go into the world and interact with the world, understand the world, see as much of the world as you can before you can form an opinion. This is really important. If people, and I know I keep talking about this a lot, if people had talked more to the natives in any given location, especially around Madagascar, let's say, Madagascar, right? Why Madagascar, you say? Because in Madagascar, they were fishing coelacanth forever. That's what they're fishing for. It's not a good eating fish, but they kept catching it, right? So, but to Western science, that fish was extinct for 60 million years. To the Madagascans, when natives in central Congo talk about the Mokele Mbembe, and they describe a dinosaur, like a not quite like a Brachiosaurus, more like a Diplodocus, a smaller Brontosaurus, if you will. Right? That's what they're describing. Lives in the journal. That's what they're saying. Mokele Mbembe, that's what they call it. They don't know it's a dinosaur.
Mackie, I've got a segue from that, all right, to something to add. Do you remember my favorite place on the whole planet that I've wanted to visit, and one day I'm going to get there, and that's Angkor Wat.
Angkor Wat, yes.
In Angkor Wat, there's a petroglyph that shows a Stegosaurus.
Yes.
Stegosaurus. How could a human, if we weren't cohabitating on a planet at the same time with dinosaurs, how could a human from Angkor Wat draw a Stegosaurus?
That's right. How?
How is it even possible? Unless we did. Unless in fact we did cohabitate at the same time. That's the definition of cohabitate. We both lived here, us and dinosaurs lived on the Earth at the same time.
Yeah. Well, let's be very clear here, right? Now fossils. Okay, first of all, fossils take very specific circumstances to form. Very specific. On land, those circumstances almost never exist.
Yeah.
They do, but very rarely. The vast majority of fossils we have, something like 95, 96%, the ones that we found, are marine fossils. That means they came from the ocean. Even if today they're on land, they're still marine fossils. Like, you see some areas of the world today are dry land. They used to be the bottom of the ocean. That's where you can find fossils. Easy, right? And not only that, so fossilization also takes a very long time. So you need very specific circumstances, and then it takes a very long time where the organic matter is replaced with a crystalline rock formation matter. Essentially it becomes rock, fossilized. It actually turns into rock. So there's no longer any organic matter, but now the organic matter has been filled in with a stone-like substance. That's what fossilization means. And of course, we don't find any recent fossils because they wouldn't have formed. That's really the point.
You just find a dead body.
That's right. Boom, right there. But the problem is this: in the sea or even on land, especially in a jungle-like climate. I mean, and you have to realize that in a forest or in a jungle, in a tropical climate, whatever it might be, cadavers don't last very long. I don't know if you're familiar with the outside world much, guys, but if you go out bushwalking or walking in the forest, going for hikes, and you see a dead critter somewhere, like maybe a dead fox or even a large animal like a dead bear, within days, depending on the size of the carcass, within days or weeks, that's gone. It is eaten by the ants, by bacteria, it's eaten by other predators, the wind and the weather will do their work as well. That's the sun, and then the bones will be scattered. So what once a fairly coherent kind of corpse will become quite dismembered and almost unrecognizable over a very short period of time, because all the soft matter goes within days. The flesh, the eyes, the brain, that's gone.
Scavengers.
What remains will be some of the fur. Yeah, scavengers. Some of the fur will be there, some of the bones will be there, but even those will eventually decompose and be scattered, unless they're covered over by a layer of completely oxygen-free soil, or rock, or mud, whatever it might be. But it has to be oxygen-free, because the decay will continue as long as bacteria have oxygen to feed on, to keep on going with those processes. It's really important to understand that, and we dismiss all these things because we haven't had them in the fossil record for 60 million years. Therefore, you're wrong. Well, guys, again, I come back to this fish because it's my favorite fish in the whole world. The coelacanth was missing from the fossil record for 60 million years, but there it is, swimming, well, live, ready to be caught by you, right, and eaten for dinner. Not a very tasty dinner, but there it is. And it's the same way with other things. We have this preconceived idea that, oh, we found this now. This is what we found. We've drawn like this is what I find amazing, Dave. We're really good at this, right? We categorize and we draw these tables and like tree diagrams, right? You've got a crocodile here, and then it branches out into the alligator, and then they got Komodo dragons over here, and then
That's right.
This saltwater crocs, and before that there were even bigger crocodiles. But so we do this with such a degree of certainty that most people think it's a fact. Now, I don't want to dismiss the work that went into any of this. Of course, it is important work, and of course, it's hard. Of course, all of these things are true. But let's be clear here: it is someone's idea, right? There's some things they've found. There's some facts they've collected. Everything else they fill in with theories and speculation, and that's cool. That is cool because you have to do that. Otherwise, you can't move forward. But let's not make the mistake here of assuming that this is the truth. Okay, this is just our working model right now. It's our working model because we don't really know anything. That's a really profound truth to come to terms with. We don't really know anything. Everything we do is completely arbitrary. People say, "Oh, this is 1 kilometer long. That's a light year, and that's this, and that's that, and and that's 1 astronomical unit." Do you know what an astronomical unit is? It's the distance from the sun to the Earth. That's a parsec. That's what it is. It's completely arbitrary. It has no meaning anywhere else in the cosmos. None. Zero. Okay, a kilometer means nothing anywhere else in the cosmos. That's what we think it is. Right? I mean, our human-sized world on our human scale, right, is completely irrelevant to anyone else. Visitors could be, I don't know, the size of a thimble, the size of a bacterium. They could be the size of a sun. We don't know. Our size is completely arbitrary. And if you look at the universe, like you said, there's this great thing on Facebook or YouTube where you can go from the really tiny, like quantum level sizing, to the cosmic, like the universe scale. Go between the two. It's like a expansion journey. Expansion and then contraction. It's really fantastic visualization of just how arbitrary any measurements are, any observations that we have of the natural world, because they only refer to what we can understand and see. In fact, what we can see is very limited. We've spoken about this as well, right? The visible light is a very tiny part of the spectrum. Tiny, tiny, tiny. We can't perceive in the infrared, and we can't perceive in the ultraviolet. And we go beyond that, we don't even know what's going on. Right? It'll kill us. Radioactivity will kill us. The radiation, right? The hard radiation is going to kill us. We can't see it though. We can feel it to some extent. That's the visible stuff. Then there's the hearing. Okay, there's other sensations we get, but it's all filtered. Our brain has so many filters, right? It has so many filters overlaid on it that because we have to. We can't actually process all of the information that's coming to us. It drives us insane. So we have to put filters on. And they're also expectational filters. So we see things we expect to see, right? If it's something completely new that we have no reference point towards, chances are we can't see it or not see it clearly, or we try to make sense of it by shoehorning it into something else. Sorry, I don't want to digress here too much, but this is really some of the things we need to come to terms with, right? We need to understand our limitations. Very important. But Dave, there's something very interesting you recently read about cosmic rays.
I love your segue. Very nice. You were talking about us and our ability to see only a very small part of the EM spectrum, and that is visible light. Why is this so when other creatures like insects can see ultraviolet and we can't? Even birds are said to be able to see ultraviolet light and the waves that they're created by the sun, which is proposed that they can see those waves and determine where the sun is, even if the sun isn't quite visible at the moment. So extraordinary. As I think science is trying to ignore the fact that they've got a compass in their head. But let's move on. Now, I found something recently, and it came out in March, but I've only just recently found it, so it's 2 months old. But you may be intrigued now because of what it is. It's about cosmic rays. Now, the data shows that cosmic rays have been intensifying with an approximately 13% increase since just 2015. Even though we're not at a solar maximum and the sun isn't doing very much at the moment. There was a huge dark rift down the middle of it last week that it didn't have a sunspot. There was no sunspots, but the energy output from the sun is increasing. And we're measuring this in cosmic ray levels. Now, if you don't know what a cosmic ray is, cosmic rays are high energy photons and subatomic particles. I don't know what a particle is, but it's a particle, accelerated in all directions by the sun and by other suns and by supernovae. That's supernovas when suns come to the end of their current life and metamorphosize into either a black hole or a neutron star or a pulsar. Any one of those things are possible. Now, other violent events also in the Milky Way where two stars collide can do the same thing. Now, usually cosmic rays are held at bay by the sun's magnetic field, which develops and protects all the planets in the solar system. But the sun's magnetic shield is weakening. In 2017, as the solar cycle shifts from solar maximum to solar minimum, more and more cosmic rays are therefore reaching our planet. Now, how does this affect us? I'm going to tell you that cosmic rays penetrate commercial airliners. So if you work as a, don't want to be rude and call you a trolley dolly, prefer to call you flight crew, then dosing of passengers and of flight crews enough that pilots are classified as occupational radiation workers. Did you know that? Did you know? Meki, did you know that?
I did not know that.
No, regular flights in the air will, if you do that for a living, classify you as an occupational radiation worker. Now, if you're on a, say, long distance flight and you're at 40,000 feet and you close your eyes, every once in a while you may see a bright flash inside your eye. That's a cosmic ray, it's a cosmic particle, it's a subatomic particle hitting your retina and causing a bright flash. It's like an ocular migraine. Now, it's said that, the astronauts were seeing these all the time because they were unshielded. We talked about a little segue there, going back to the previous hour's discussion about the why we haven't returned to the moon. Now, if it's only doing it in your eyes, that would be okay. But your eye is, half of 1% of your body mass. It's occurring everywhere. And it's probably bad for you, but, time will tell, I suppose. So, if there's more cosmic rays hitting the Earth, 13% more, where are they coming from? Is it the sun? Is it this part of space? Remember, I told you we're going through a dirty space right now. There's more stuff coming at us. It's thick with stuff. That's why we've got a huge increase also in the amount of fireballs. There's a register. You can go online and have a look at the register for fireballs. And if you see one, you can register it. It's a huge spike. It's an exponential spike in the amount of fireballs we're seeing. This is dirty space. This is filled with all sorts of stuff, and it's raining down on us. Now, the cosmic rays shouldn't make it all the way to the Earth, but they can. And if this increases, maybe this is because our magnetic shield has weakened. And this is what I want you to go and research for yourselves. So check it out. See why I'm so drawn to this topic. I was always a flyer. My mother worked for Qantas, our national carrier, and I got a lot of flights in when I was young, and I've personally experienced these things and others. Now, Meki, I know you're an avid traveler, or a regular traveler. Avid may not be the correct description, but you're certainly you travel all the time. Have you ever had one of those flashes on your retina?
Yeah. Well, yes, quite frequently actually. But yes, the answer is yes. So I'm also a radiation worker now.
Well, quite possibly. Did you know the cell phone towers? If
Yes.
there is only 30 seconds of available personage, that'll do. That means if you were to stand at the tower to service it as a registered cell phone tower service person, 30 seconds is all you're allowed to be within its proximity before you're supposed to have it turned off or leave.
Really?
Yeah, 30 seconds. Because it's such a high source of energy. Now, 45 seconds, ironically, if you're not a qualified worker. So they let the, Joe Public stand next to the device for longer. Clearly, it's because if you do it on a regular basis, it's very damaging to you, and they want to limit that exposure. So I know this because I used to work for a company that you had to have a little rad thing on your belt if you went into a particular area because we had nuclear medicine on board. All right. So that's got me right into all of that from a science point. I like the science part from a science point of view. But my goodness me, the cosmic ray increase. Now that's got me worried. I worry about what the cause is. Is this the remnants or the blast waves from supernovae from distant suns having gone? Because I remember there's been a couple of them that have been recorded in Chinese history, Meki, because they've got the longest written history of terrestrial, extraterrestrial, solar. What am I looking for here, Meki? Not solar, of stars, right? They've been star watchers for a long, long time, and some of those, I think one of them was in like 1200 or something. There was a supernova that lit the Earth for a number of days. Extraordinary. So we're going around. Yeah. So the Earth's spinning around, so we had sun from both sides for a couple of days. That's pretty cool.
And look, there has been an event like this, or not like this, but something that has unnaturally lit up the Earth, which was the Tunguska explosion, where people could still read the newspaper in London some weeks afterwards, at night, I should say, at night. So look, all of these things, the anomalous observations, the science that is out there which we simply do not pursue, the potential harm that comes to us. What does it tell you? Well, I'll tell you what it tells you. It tells you that we are kept in the dark deliberately. We are being kept in the dark because knowing the truth would have us act very differently. Knowing the truth would make us maybe care more about the things that we don't know about, because there's a harmful side effect here. There's things that can actually harm us, cut our life or this life short, as the life as we know it right now. It's really quite telling. Look, what you just told me about the radiation workers is I had no idea. But you know what it reminded me of?
What was that? Slightly
digressing is the people that died at the Groom Lake facility, which most people know as Area 51. In the Groom Lake facility, people were dying, cancers, different things, right? They were just simply dying, so they went to court because they wanted to know what killed them. They had no idea why am I dying of, and the court ruled that they cannot know. They cannot know because it would impact national security. This is true. You can look it up yourself. The people that died in the Groom Lake facility, and maybe still are, they're not allowed to know what they're dying of.
And that was a pivotal case for Area 51. It was pivotal for two reasons. One, the cause was as a result of them doing a burn off, and I forget which day. It was regular on a particular day of the week, every single week, or bi-monthly, so every fortnight. For those in America who don't know what a fortnight is, it's 2 weeks. And so the fumes and the smoke was breathed in by the people having to do the burn off, dumping all this material into this big pit and setting it on fire. But that was the first part of that, Mickey. The second part was the declaration by the US government and recognition publicly that Area 51 existed.
Yes. That was an admission, wasn't it?
Hmm.
Yeah, well, we can tell you it's here. We can't tell you what it does.
So yeah, they couldn't tell. They weren't allowed to disclose the materials they were burning either. But
Nothing.
but the admission that the place existed was the first milestone. And of course, yeah.
It's a giveaway, Dave, when they start shooting at you when you get too close, right?
It's a giveaway. Yeah, the signs, and what are those like the tremor detectors and metal detectors, or whatever they are in the soil, which detect oncoming vehicles or vehicles coming towards, I don't know what they do. All of those things, the two dudes in the white truck that will use lethal force if you cross that invisible line. It's an invisible line, Mackie. It's a panopticon.
It is. It's the red dot on the floor.
On your forehead. It's a red dot on your chest. That's what that is.
Yeah, but look, we joke about this, but these are realities, and look, most of our listenership is from the States, obviously. This is your country, guys. I mean, there are places in your country you cannot go to. We've got places like this. Pine Gap for us.
Yeah.
Can't go to Pine Gap. Can't happen. Will not happen. Can't go there.
Mm-hmm.
Other places too. And look, I don't want to go in everybody's house, and I don't care. There are certain places I do want to see, though. I mean, if there's a place like Groom Lake, I want. So I can't go, right? But send someone in that can tell me about it, take pictures and whatnot, right? Because it can't all be national security bound. Not well. If it is, then we have an issue here. We've got a big problem. If all of it is needs to be staying in the dark and kept on in the shadows, you have to ask yourself, well, what is really going on then? What is it they're doing there? I mean, what is it that I cannot know? You guys being a citizen of your own country, what is it that you cannot know about what your government does and does not do? Right? This should worry you. It worries me. Right? Whenever you don't know something, and this is the whole point of an open government. This was the whole point of the United States when it was first conceived of, right? A very strong constitution, the Bill of Rights, to safeguard against this kind of thing, this kind of secrecy. Kennedy said, secrecy is an abhorrent word when it comes to government. There shouldn't be any government secrecy. There is more now and ever before. Every day there's. Yeah, more than ever before, and more. There'll be more and more yet, and not just in the States, but specifically the States. Everywhere else, same. I mean, other countries you get shot immediately, never heard from again. So obviously, I mean, people always say, "Oh, there's no such thing as a shadow government." Well, that's bullshit. Pardon my French, but I have to be very strong here. There clearly is, because people get killed, people are silenced, and things are going on that you don't know about. Tell me that's not so. Where do the trains of dollars go? China dissidents disappear all the time. So, I mean, of course there is a shadow elite government. There's a shadow agenda. There's a thing. There are things that you don't know about. And if you don't want to know, that's okay. But you should want to know. You should want to know. It's your children. It's you. It's your future. It's everything. It's maybe getting out of this prison. I don't know, man. But we are obliged to want to know. We have the responsibility to know.